Failure is the mask. Sabotage is the hand behind it. You tell yourself you're failing because you're not good enough, because the world is against you, because the universe is cruel and unkind. But that is not the truth. The truth is darker. The truth is sharper. The truth is that most people do not collapse because life broke them, but because they quietly broke themselves, piece by piece, through unconscious sabotage. It is not your enemies who keep you trapped. It is not the obstacles outside. The prison is always self-built. The bars are made of hesitation. The walls are built from excuses, and the lock is your own fear of freedom. You are not failing. You are secretly undermining yourself, and you don't even know it. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That is the essence of sabotage. You are being ruled not by destiny, but by the hidden shadows of your own psyche patterns you refuse to confront, beliefs you inherited without question, traumas you buried so deep you pretend they no longer exist. Yet they still speak. They whisper every time you procrastinate. They echo every time you settle for less. They scream every time you sabotage your own rise. This is why two people can start at the same place. One ascends like fire through dry grass, and the other circles endlessly in mediocrity. It is not intelligence, not talent, not even luck that separates them. It is sabotage. One has burned away the inner resistance. The other feeds it daily with doubt, distraction, and fear. And here is the first truth you must accept. Sabotage rarely looks like sabotage. It disguises itself as rationality, as caution, as logic. It tells you, wait until you're ready. Don't take the risk. Be practical. Stay comfortable. Protect yourself. But beneath these gentle words hides the silent poison that keeps you small. Every time you hesitate to speak your truth, you sabotage. Every time you downplay your potential, you sabotage. Every time you hand your power to fear, to comfort, to other people's approval, you sabotage. And then you call it failure. But failure is not what's happening. Failure would mean you tried with all your being and the world crushed you. But that is not what most of us experience. What we experience is betrayal, self-betrayal. The blade is in your own hand, turned against yourself. Think of history. Great empires rarely collapse from invasion alone. Rome did not fall only because of barbarians at the gate. It decayed from within, corrupted by its own indulgence, its own infighting, its own surrender to weakness. So too is the empire of your life. You will not be destroyed by others unless you first rot from inside. So I must ask you, how many battles are you losing without ever stepping onto the field? How many victories have you denied yourself before the fight even began? How many times have you murdered your own potential in silence and then wept at the funeral as if the world had stolen it from you? You are not failing. You are sabotaging yourself. And until you face that truth, you will keep building prisons while blaming the world for your chains. The sabotage begins in the mind, and the mind is a trickster. It convinces you that you are protecting yourself, when in fact you are slowly killing your future. Nietzsche warned us, man is something that shall be overcome. Yet most refuse the climb, not because they are incapable, but because they sabotage every step upward with invisible anchors of doubt. Do you know why? Because sabotage feels safe. It is easier to believe you are failing due to circumstances than to face the fact that you are the architect of your own misery. It is easier to play the victim of fate than the creator of destiny. And so you choose sabotage again and again until it becomes your identity. But if you wish to break free, if you wish to rise, you must drag your sabotage out of the shadows and expose it to the light. You must name it, confront it, dismantle it, piece by piece. For what is unconscious will always rule you, but what is conscious can be destroyed. The question is, are you brave enough to face yourself? Because here is the second truth. Sabotage always hides in comfort. It thrives in routine, in distraction, in numbing pleasures. Alcohol, endless scrolling, gossip, procrastination, all of them are weapons you use against yourself while pretending they are harmless. Sabotage is the slow suicide of the spirit, and modern society has made it a lifestyle. Look around. People sabotage themselves with debt, with toxic relationships, with wasted years of mindless entertainment. They sabotage their health with indulgence, their ambition with laziness, their future with excuses. And then they say, I failed. No, they didn't fail. They killed their victory before it was even born. The world is full of people who could have been kings and queens of their own lives, but who instead chose to be slaves of their sabotage, slaves of comfort, slaves of fear, slaves of the small self whispering, don't try, don't risk, don't rise. But you who hear these words, you are being called to see through the deception, to recognize the enemy within, to stop dressing sabotage in the clothing of failure, and to start tearing it out of your soul like weeds from a poisoned garden. Because here is the brutal reality. Nobody is coming to save you from yourself. Not luck, not love, not money, not opportunity. The war is inside, and until you win it, nothing outside will change. And the first battlefield is belief. Belief is the architect of your destiny, and sabotage begins its construction there. The belief that you are not worthy, the belief that it's too late, the belief that greatness belongs to others but not to you. These are not truths. They are cages disguised as reason. And every time you accept one, you weld another bar across the prison of your mind. Jung spoke of the shadow, the repressed parts of ourselves we do not wish to see. But here is what most forget. Your shadow is not just rage, lust, or envy. Your shadow is also your brilliance, your strength, your genius, the light you are terrified to wield because you know it will demand sacrifice. And so, unconsciously, you sabotage it. You bury your power because it frightens you more than weakness ever could. This is why you talk yourself out of opportunities. This is why you hesitate to step forward. Because the moment you admit you are capable, you also admit you have no excuse. And excuses are comfortable. Excuses let you sleep. Excuses let you blame. But belief, true belief in your own power, strips those excuses away and forces you to face the terrifying truth. You are responsible for everything. Machiavelli once wrote, "The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves." Your sabotage is the trap. It is the subtle, invisible snare you set for yourself. And unless you sharpen your awareness like the fox, unless you cultivate the courage of the lion, you will remain ensnared, tricked not by the world, but by your own unconscious design. But belief is not mere positive thinking. Belief is war. It is the daily act of choosing your vision over your fear, again and again, until the old patterns collapse. It is not whispering, "I am strong," into the mirror while trembling inside. It is proving it with action, proving it with discipline, proving it with sacrifice. The world does not care what you think of yourself. It only mirrors back what you repeatedly prove. And sabotage ensures you never prove anything, because it keeps you trapped in hesitation. But belief, true belief, burns hesitation to ash. Clarity is the next weapon. Without clarity, belief becomes scattered. You cannot aim a bow if you do not see the target. Yet most people drift through life blindfolded, swinging wildly at shadows, then crying out when nothing changes. They call it failure. No, it is sabotage through blindness. You must be ruthlessly clear. Clear on what you want. Clear on why you want it. Clear on what you are willing to sacrifice. Without clarity, sabotage has fertile soil to grow. It whispers, maybe later, maybe something else. Maybe you don't really want this. And so you drift year after year, mistaking confusion for fate. Aldous Huxley warned us that the most dangerous form of slavery is not chains and whips, but distraction and illusion. Today, Clarity is more rare than gold because the world drowns you in noise. Every screen, every feed, every headline is designed to scatter your focus until you forget what you were even reaching for. And in that fog, sabotage thrives. Vision cuts through the fog. Vision is the lighthouse in the storm. When you carry a vision so sharp, so burning, that it slices through every distraction, sabotage has no place to hide. Vision is not vague hope. It is not a weak desire. Vision is carved in fire, a picture of your future, so alive in your mind that the present feels small compared to it. But here is the danger. Vision will demand a price. It will demand discipline. And this is where sabotage strikes hardest. Because sabotage tells you discipline is suffering while indulgence is joy. But the truth is the reverse. Discipline is liberation. Indulgence is the chain. The man who cannot command himself is already enslaved. Think of Spartans raised in fire, molded by discipline until their very bones were forged into weapons. They did not sabotage themselves with comfort, with excuses, with hesitation. And that is why history still speaks their name. Compare that with the countless millions who chose ease over discipline, their names dissolved into dust, forgotten by time. Which destiny do you want? Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect made visible. Every time you sabotage with procrastination, with laziness, with weakness, you are declaring to yourself, I am not worth the effort. And the universe echoes it back. But every time you hold the line, every time you rise before the sun, every time you do the hard thing while your sabotage screams against it, you declare, I am becoming unbreakable. And unbreakable is what you must become. Because sabotage does not vanish after a single victory. It waits, it hides, it adapts, it returns the moment you grow tired. And so resilience becomes your shield. Resilience is not never falling, it is never staying down. It is the refusal to make self-betrayal permanent. History has shown us, those who endure become legends. Nietzsche suffered illness, isolation, ridicule, yet his words still ignite the world today. Dostoevsky wrote masterpieces after staring into the face of death. Nelson Mandela walked free after decades in a cell, unbroken, while his captors collapsed into history's shame. Each of them could have sabotaged their destiny by surrendering, but they did not. So I ask you again, is it really failure that chains you? Or is it sabotage, the quiet surrender, the hidden betrayal, the choice to remain small when greatness demanded you rise? You were not born to live as a saboteur of your own soul. You were born to conquer yourself, to master the chaos within, to rise beyond the petty comforts and distractions that keep billions asleep. And if you dare, if you truly dare to face the shadows of sabotage, you will discover what has been waiting underneath all along. A mind so clear it cuts through illusion, a will so strong it bends reality, and a spirit so resilient it cannot be broken. But the final battle is not belief, not clarity, not discipline. The final battle is purpose. Purpose is the fire that burns beyond comfort, beyond fear, beyond sabotage itself. Without purpose, every act of discipline feels like torture. Every sacrifice feels meaningless. But with purpose, even suffering becomes sacred. When you have a purpose that transcends your temporary pain, you can endure anything. You can burn and still walk forward, because the fire is no longer your enemy, it becomes your forge. Sabotage thrives in the absence of purpose. When you do not know why you are alive, sabotage convinces you to live for trivial things. It whispers, chase pleasure, chase validation, chase comfort. And so you waste years worshiping false gods, attention, approval, status symbols that will turn to dust in your hands. And when they do, you call it failure. But it was sabotage. Purpose was missing, and so you betrayed yourself without even knowing it. Jung believed that every human being carries a myth within them, a story they are meant to live. Most never discover theirs. They bury it under conformity, under fear, under society's demands. They sabotage their true path for a safer, smaller one. And in doing so, they don't just fail, they decay. They become hollow men, fragile women, shells that walk but never live. Purpose is not chosen. Purpose is discovered. It is unearthed in the depths of your suffering, in the silence of your solitude, in the clarity that comes when you finally stop lying to yourself. Purpose is what remains when sabotage dies. Purpose is the voice inside you that never stops whispering, even when you drown it in distraction. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not as a king, but as a man wrestling with himself. Surrounded by temptation, power, and corruption, he chose purpose over indulgence. He chose self-mastery over sabotage. That is why nearly 2,000 years later his words still breathe fire into the souls of those who dare read them. But purpose alone is not enough. Purpose must be embodied through action. And here, sabotage launches its final assault, because it knows this is the threshold, the place where dreams either become reality or dissolve into smoke. Sabotage does not fear your visions, it fears your action. Because action is the death of self-betrayal. How many times have you felt the pull of purpose only to stop at the edge of action? How many times have you told yourself, I'll start tomorrow. I'll wait until I'm ready. I need more time. That is sabotage's favorite lie, the lie of tomorrow. Tomorrow is the graveyard where dreams go to rot. Tomorrow is the battlefield where sabotage wins without a fight. If you want freedom, you must kill tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. There is only now. Every hesitation, every delay, every excuse is a dagger turned inward. And every act of action, no matter how small, is an act of war against sabotage. But action is not chaos. Action must be guided by clarity and discipline. Otherwise, you mistake motion for progress, and sabotage laughs as you run in circles. True action is precise. It is deliberate. It is the fusion of purpose, belief, and discipline into movement. Gratitude is the secret that keeps this movement alive. Because sabotage feeds on scarcity, the belief that you do not have enough, that you are not enough. Gratitude poisons that lie. Gratitude shifts your vision from what is missing to what is possible. It reminds you that you already carry within you the strength, the breath, the will to act. Gratitude silences the endless hunger sabotage uses to keep you weak. Adaptability is your sword, because sabotage will not always attack from the same angle. Sometimes it disguises itself as fear, sometimes as comfort, sometimes as false logic. To defeat it, you must adapt. You must become fluid, like water. When sabotage closes one path, you find another. When sabotage whispers doubt, you answer with clarity. When sabotage strikes with comfort, you strike back with discipline. Resilience is your armor, because sabotage will never stop testing you. You will rise, and it will return. You will conquer, and it will find new disguises. The difference between the broken and the unbreakable is not that one faces sabotage and the other doesn't. The difference is that the unbreakable refuses to surrender no matter how many times sabotage returns. The samurai lived by the code of Bushido, the way of the warrior. They understood that death could come at any moment, and so they lived ready, unafraid, undistracted. That is the mindset you must carry. Sabotage is always near, but so is your purpose. And when you live with the discipline of a warrior, sabotage cannot enslave you. Learning is your endless weapon, because sabotage thrives in ignorance. It feeds on the belief that you already know enough, that growth is unnecessary, that comfort is wisdom. But wisdom belongs to those who seek it, who study, who evolve. The moment you stop learning, sabotage grows stronger. The moment you sharpen your mind, sabotage weakens. And so the path is revealed. Belief ignites the fire. Clarity aims the arrow. Vision pulls it back. Discipline releases it. Action sends it forward. Gratitude protects the spirit. Adaptability guides the flight. Resilience ensures it never breaks. And learning sharpens every shot that follows. This is how you destroy sabotage. This is how you stop mistaking self-betrayal for failure. This is how you rise. But understand this: sabotage never truly dies. It is woven into the human condition, the eternal shadow of our psyche. The goal is not to eliminate it. The goal is to dominate it, to rise above it, to turn it into fuel instead of chains. And if you can do that, if you can confront your sabotage, dismantle it, and master it, then you will no longer live as a prisoner of invisible chains. You will live as a creator, as a warrior of your own mind, as someone who no longer confuses failure with self-betrayal, but who knows the difference and chooses victory every single time. So let this truth burn into you. You are not failing. You are sabotaging yourself without knowing it. And now that you know, you no longer have the luxury of ignorance. The time for sabotage is over. The time for mastery has begun. Then listen closely, because this is where everything converges. All along you believed failure was the end. But failure is a phantom, a shadow cast by something deeper. The true enemy was never failure, never rejection, never defeat. The true enemy was sabotage, your own hand gripping the knife turned inward. And now the mask is gone. You see it for what it is. The question is no longer whether you will fail. The question is whether you will keep betraying yourself when you now know the truth. Because the moment you recognize sabotage, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads back to comfort, back to excuses, back to the slow death of potential. The other path demands war. War with your own weakness, with your own shadow, with every voice that whispers, stay small, stay safe, stay silent. But here is the secret. Once you choose war, sabotage loses its dominion. It no longer commands you. It becomes your fuel. Every doubt becomes a challenge. Every distraction becomes a test. Every weakness becomes an opportunity to prove yourself stronger. You do not eliminate sabotage. You master it, you harness it, you transform it into the very fire that carries you forward. And in that transformation, something extraordinary happens. Nothing outside of you can break you anymore. Not betrayal, not rejection, not failure itself. Because you know the truth, nothing outside can destroy you if you refuse to destroy yourself from within. This is what Nietzsche meant when he declared, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Your purpose, your vision, your discipline, these are the pillars that no sabotage can shatter. Once they are forged in fire, you become untouchable. So let this be your awakening. You were never failing. You were sabotaging yourself without knowing it. And now you know. So what will you do with this knowledge? Will you go back to sleep, back into the warm arms of self-betrayal? Or will you rise, fully awake, and take command of your destiny? The choice is yours. The power is yours. The war is yours. Stand tall. Face the shadow. Crush the sabotage within, and walk into the life that has always been waiting for you. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Because once you stop sabotaging yourself, you will discover what you were always meant to be. Unbreakable, unstoppable, untouchable. And then the world will finally see the truth. You were never failing. You were only preparing to rise.